Before you quit your 9 to 5, let's talk about some stuff that you might want to have in place first, right? So with a business, yes, you are in business to make money for sure. But before you start making money, there's a lot of different pieces and parts and considerations that you should have. And there's a lot of things that you can do before you roll into your business full time up front. So one of the first things I would say to think about with regard to your business is really get clear on what it is that you want to offer as a part of your business. What services or product are you looking to bring to the market? And who are your customers? I am a big advocate, and this is something, I would probably do even more of it if I had to do it all over again, is really understanding who you're selling to, what the gaps are in the market. So doing some research, market research, right, around testing out whether what you have in mind as being something that the market needs or want is actually what they need or want is really important. There's a program, a formal structured process or program for this called I-Core. That's I-CORP, I-Core. And you might find that there's an I-Core program at a university or college near you. A lot of times there'll be ones to administer these programs, but really that I-Core program is focused on intense market research, surveying, researching, interviewing individuals in organizations that are within who you think your market will be when you start your business. That is something that you can start doing, asking those questions, fleshing out whether what you have in mind is something that is what they want, or if you need to tweak it some, etc. That is something that I would say is very a productive use of your time that you can do while you're still working your 9 to 5. Another important thing to think through before you quit your 9 to 5 is how you plan to finance your company initially. I certainly recommend you listening to another segment where I discuss bootstrapping or external funding, where your money comes from matters. That is something that you really need to be thinking through before you quit your 9 to 5. And one thing that I'll say here that I also mentioned in the other segment is you need to have a pot or a resource of money to pay for things initially and upfront, whether you have a services or a product business. For a product business, typically that requires quite a bit more financing and funding up front before you get to be revenue generating versus services, just as a general rule. But in either case, you need to know where your money's coming from up front. You need to have, even if it's you and you're going to be a solo founder and business owner initially, you need to understand, do I have enough savings to pay for my financial obligations? When I started as an entrepreneur, I was already a homeowner. And so I had a mortgage, I have bills, right? And so when you start your business, you need to be really clear on how much runway do you have personally, because some of the funds that you use, depending upon the source of the funding, you need to understand how you're going to be able to pay bills. And if you have employees, how you're going to be able to pay your employees. So where you're going to get your money from before you quit your 9 to 5 is also a really important thing to know and understand. Another part of what you want to make sure you're clear on with regard to before you quit your 9 to 5, it's just how you plan to structure your business. There's a lot of different legal structures. You can have a limited liability company, you can have a sole proprietorship, just the logistics of starting a company. I had a cousin of mine recently say that, hey, Tina, I'm interested in starting my own business, a limited liability company. Can you help me? So I looked at the state that he was in. I did some quick research for that state, how to start an LLC. And there were several steps involved with that, from choosing your name to understanding which organizations within the state you need to register with, how you need to register with the IRS to get a EIN, whether you'll need to have a bank account up front. Now you have a beneficial owner requirement, or at least it's voluntary. That goes back and forth so many times now, so I don't know where the beneficial owner information BOI filing will end or land finally. But that was another thing that was listed on that state website right now. So there are several steps that are required just for the logistics of starting your own company that you need to ensure that you know and understand and have in place before you hang out your shingle to start your company. So these are just some really important basic considerations that you'll want to have. And some of this stuff are things that you would include even in a business plan, like that market research. Even if you don't have this, illustrious 50-page business plan document, I do recommend having documented what your mission is, what your vision is, what your timeline is, who you plan to service. That's information you get from market research. What are your differentiators? So it's largely easy to get a business plan sort of outline, the sorts of things that would need to go into a business plan. I recommend even using that as a guide and see the things that you should be thinking about now before you even start your business formally. Just make sure you have those considerations in place. Again, these are all things that you can start thinking through, processing, and understanding before you quit your 9-to-5 job, right? And so I am a big proponent of entrepreneurship. In my case, when I started TCecure, I had already had in my mind that I wanted to go back and get into entrepreneurship, and this time full time. And I had already started thinking about it, what I wanted to do, and praying about it. And it was just interesting because the company that I was working for at the time, another small business, one of the co-founders came up to me out of the blue one day and asked me, "Tina, did you ever think about starting your own business?" I was so floored. Like literally I had just been thinking about and, kind of constructing in my mind. And that company that I worked for as a W-2 became my first customer when I started TCecure. So it's just phenomenal the things that can happen when you have a vision, you make it plain, and you have a plan. So if you would like to learn anything more about things you should consider before you quit that 9-to-5, you can reach me. One of my common social media platforms is LinkedIn, Tina Williams-Koroma. You can direct message me. Also look on our company socials. TCecure is on Instagram. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook. So you can send us a message, and feel free here, I recommend it, to subscribe because there is more to come.